Hey everybody, this is your friendly neighborhood therapist Alfonso. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I am going to be doing a series of videos making you aware of psychiatric disorders. The first disorder that we're going to focus on is Generalized Anxiety Disorder. Hang in there because your friendly neighborhood therapist is about to tell you the difference between distress and eustress. Be right back. Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood therapist Alfonso, and I hope that you are already having an amazing day on purpose. Hey, I wanted to take this opportunity. This May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I wanted to take this opportunity to bring some psychiatric disorders to your knowledge and to hopefully help to destigmatize some of these things, to normalize some of these things. Now, I don't have anything scripted. I'm actually going off the cuff with this, so please forgive if I misquote something and have to come back and correct it. Please forgive your friendly neighborhood therapist. As I said, none of this is scripted, but I'm going to post a series of videos talking about various psychiatric disorders, and the first one that I wanted to talk about is anxiety. Anxiety. Anxiety actually has a number of subcategories that come under it, such as a telephobia, which is a desire for perfection. But I want to talk about generalized anxiety disorder. Now, I want to differentiate. Individuals can have things that happen in their world that can cause them to feel anxious, or they can actually have anxiety as a separate and freestanding psychiatric disorder. Let's say you are going for a job interview and you're anxious about getting the job, you're nervous about what you're going to say, you're worried about your presentation. Well, that would be more along the lines of what we call scopophobia, which is a fear like you're under the microscope, like people are judging you. But in a generalized anxiety disorder, it's when you constantly worry all the time. There are two things that really denote anxiety, the crux of anxiety. Number one is an almost inability to shut your brain off. Now, that doesn't have to always be worried about something. It could be about individuals who, let's say, they are concerned that something that they designed, something they plan may not work out. So they'll worry about having a plan B or a plan C. But the crux of anxiety is about not being able to shut your brain off. In other words, not able to stop thinking. The biggest part of anxiety is when it brings that factor that causes you to worry obsessively. Individuals who suffer from anxiety typically have an inability to shut their brains off. Now, there's a difference between the mind and the brain. The brain is what you can see on imaging. The mind is the how do I say the mind? It's the offshoot of what happens as a result of how the brain operates and how it processes information. So, anxiety emanates in your brain and it influences your mind. I tell my patients that you can't stop yourself from being anxious because that's in your brain, but you can work on what you allow that anxiety to produce in terms of how you are now using your mind to deal with the thoughts that come to it from your brain. The other thing about anxiety, as I said earlier, is that people tend to fear. There does not have to be any evidence to support what they fear, but when individuals suffer from anxiety, to them it's inevitable that the worst case scenario is going to manifest itself. It's what we call nihilistic projections, nihilistic or fatal projections. Individuals with anxiety don't need any evidence to support their worst fear. They automatically believe that the worst is going to happen, and it can cause them to become stuck, what we call the paralysis of analysis. You guys may have heard of that. And the other, I don't want to say downside of anxiety in a negative way, but one of the things that happens as a result of anxiety is that it can have a significant impact on an individual's self-esteem. People who have anxiety tend to be very prolific in their thinking. Their What they contrive that they can do tends to be really good. But the anxiety or that fear, the fatalistic projections, the fear can cause them not to act on what they have contrived, what they think will work. An individual with anxiety may say at the beginning, let's say on a Monday, just to say on a Monday, they can decide on a Monday, they know for a fact that they're going to go to school. They know for a fact that they want to become, let's say, an accountant. They'll talk themselves up into getting the information, the research, looking at the syllabus, what it's going to take to matriculate at this university to get their degree in accounting. But what happens is that the anxiety will then come in, the negative thinking, it will come in and sabotage what they believe, what they thought on Monday would be a positive outcome. Anxiety would come in and tell them it's too expensive. The job market is not good. AI is taking over. No one will want to hire you. You're too old to do this now. Even if you get the degree, you're not going to be successful. Hey, everybody, sorry for this pause and this interruption, but I just wanted to stop and ask you to do me a favor. If you like the content that you get from this channel, if it helps you in any way at all, please consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. Please give your friendly neighborhood therapist some feedback and let me know some content that you'd like for me to bring to you. Now back to our regularly scheduled program, already in progress. Love you. Now, none of this, there's no evidence to support any of this. And we do know that AI has been coming in and really taking jobs. But an individual with anxiety only needs one thing to sabotage what they felt initially, like on that Monday, would be a fantastic thing to do. So people with anxiety, and I tell my folk all the time, please be careful when you tell somebody you need to just think positively. Well, when an individual has a psychiatric disorder like anxiety, you have to consider this. Someone with cancer, you wouldn't tell them, oh, you need to just think positively. If they have diabetes, or if they have some other somatic or physical illness, you wouldn't tell them to just think positively. The layperson or the ill-advised, uninformed, and the novice will think that a person with anxiety is thinking negatively on their own. That is not it. The neurotransmitters in the brain considered to play a role in anxiety typically tend to be GABA, epinephrine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. And in another video, I'll get into the drugs or the medications that are used to treat those. But an individual who has anxiety, who can't shut their brain off, who worries all the time, it's not that they like this. It has become normal to them not to think positively. The really bad offshoot of having a generalized anxiety when it goes untreated is that it can then lead to very low self-esteem. The individual with anxiety can really want to get something done, but they've been so littered and infiltrated with the negative thoughts that it's hard for them to get going and to stay going. I forget which physicist said that a body in motion tends to stay in motion. The law of, I'm not sure if it's momentum. Yeah, I think it's momentum. Think about that with anxiety. An individual who's anxious only needs one thing to happen to continue to fuel that anxiety for them to have a fatalistic outcome about whatever it is they contrived. Individuals who have anxiety that goes unchecked, undiagnosed, untreated, ultimately the anxiety by itself can initiate depressive episodes, if not a longer type of depression like melancholic or major depression, where you feel sad and overwhelmed because you look back and you say, I haven't done much. Everything I tried didn't work. When the reality is, you have to ask yourself, have you really tried it to the fullest extent of your capabilities, or did the anxiety come in and tell you that you're going to fail and that there's no need to do that? There are two things that I want to focus on in addition to what I already told you about anxiety. It's a it's a psychiatric disorder that produces stress. There are two types of stress. The first is distress. That's that stress that makes us feel overwhelmed. It makes us feel like things are not going to work for us. It makes us feel like everything is an exercise in futility. As Solomon said in the Bible, all is vanity. Then there's eustress, eustress. Eustress is the opposite of distress. Eustress happens when an individual has to really hunker down and do a lot of planning and research to get something done that they really want to get done. They'll burn the midnight oil. They may not sleep just like somebody with anxiety, but they are anticipating a positive outcome. So, on the one hand, distress can cause you to feel overwhelmed, not sleep, not eat, not socialize with other people. But the eustress can actually cause the exact same thing, but for a different reason. Individuals who suffer from distress that produces anxiety, or they are distressed by the anxiety, through going to therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and different forms of therapy, you can actually initiate more eustress in your life. We can look at how wonderful life can be, and then we can put things in place to help us get from that distressful place to that eustressful place. But it all starts with being properly assessed and diagnosed. Please, I need to say this. I implore you, do not go to the internet for a diagnosis. Somebody like myself, I'm a board certified licensed psychotherapist, typically takes anywhere from 6 to even 12 years in order to become a licensed healthcare professional. When you look at your undergraduate, your graduate, you look at your years that you have to do an internship, externship, supervision with another licensed professional. We put a lot of time and a lot of education, a lot of money, a lot of resources into getting that license that will allow us to diagnose and treat mental health disorders. Be careful about going to the internet to get information, because you have no idea whether or not someone has gotten that information because of what they read online, or if they really are the real thing. Always check the background of the people where you're getting information to make sure they are qualified to tell you how to deal with something like anxiety, because it can potentially be a life-threatening illness. I actually had to fuss at one of my patients today because that patient had not been following clinical and medical advice. And I said, ultimately, your refusal to follow scientifically efficacious advice could be the difference between you having a good quality of life, a bad quality of life, or no life at all. Hey, if you guys like the content of this video, do me a favor and leave me a message down in that comment section. I love interacting with my subscribers. And if nobody else has said it today, please do something on purpose to help make somebody else's life better. I guarantee you there is no greater feeling in life than the feeling of knowing that you have helped somebody who can't help themselves.